This is the Go Radio Business Show.
Tom, wee difference of choosing the studio together.
We're in the studio, Willie. I'm delighted to be here in downtown sunny Gorbals.
And it's great that you decided to get dressed up and I decided to dress down.
I just put my blue shirt on, not because of any
Allegiance.
football allegiance, but because if you go a green shirt and a green background, we're learning the laws of television here, Willie.
Brilliant. What do you want to start with this week?
Well, I mean, the big news, Willie, from a Scottish point of view, is politics, but Nicola Sturgeon's not going to stand. I don't think MD's surprised by that. And but how would you say, was she good for Scotland? Was she bad for Scotland? You know, and the one thing I've always admired about you, you will call out your own party. Therefore, I think it gives you the right to say your opinion on other parties.
Here's how I'd sum it up. I think when Nicola swept to power, I think it's right in saying that she had a approval rating off the chart, I think more than any other politician in the world, right? I think it was a bit like 96%. And it's fair to say that when she was leaving, it was probably about 6%. So it doesn't matter what I think, that's what happened. Her legacy will be the dash in the middle, what happened in the middle. There's no doubt that she gets credit for the COVID, you know, how she handled COVID. But to be honest with you, apart from a press release every day, reading just what was happening, then I don't know what she done, right? But I think it's fair to say in business terms, and this is a business show, I don't think business thought that they were engaged with the government during the whole of her leadership.
No. I think I did a documentary for the BBC back in 2016, and it was about education. And she agreed to be interviewed. I think she probably regretted it at the end of it. But anyway, and she said, judge me on my record on education. Yeah. So I had a wee look at the record of education during Nicola's premiership. And the sad fact is, Scotland used to lead the world in education. It was the envy of other countries. They would come to Scotland, see what we were doing. But the sad fact is, Scotland no longer leads the world. In fact, we're propping up some of the tables. So in literacy, in numeracy, our standards are falling. And there's a PISA study, which is a worldwide study about education systems, and Scotland has fallen for the first time below England. And I always used to say to people, England is not the gold standard. I want to be up there with Finland, with Singapore. But now we are below England. So in Nicola's own words, judge me by my record. Her record in education is poor.
And I would agree with that. And I think the record across a few things is poor. And I would say to you that, you know, you say call it out as it is. I would say that businesses has more traction in the last months dealing with the new First Minister and Deputy First Minister than we had in the last 10 years.
I would agree with that. I think I'm on record as saying I think during Nicola's premiership the economy was mismanaged because she wasn't comfortable with it and she didn't engage. I fell out with her early about a very simple thing and we didn't speak for 7 years. So I'm not saying I've got the answers, but other business people I spoke to, you didn't engage with her. Other well-known Scottish business figures just didn't get a say. And that's to the detriment of Scotland. Mm-hmm. But let's be positive. Now with John Swinney and Kate Forbes, I think we're all saying, right, we're getting listened to. Whether they do anything about it is how I judge them. Yeah. But at least they're engaging.
Yeah, and I think that the whole conversation now, even Labour are very much, saying that they're pro-business, the SNP are pro-business. We know for a fact that they've been engaged in talking to leading business figures. So let's see what happens. But I think you're right. I think that when you say, let my record speak for itself, then I don't think she'll be wanting to play that record back many nights in the house.
Okay.
And on that, and following on from the whole education thing, what about the news this week about potentially over 600 redundancies at Dundee University because of a £30 million black hole?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a sub-story here which needs to be told. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but I think there's been mismanagement here, really, over a number of years. You don't just suddenly wake up in the morning and understand there's a 35 million black hole. If any of my chief execs came to me and said that, I would say, hang on a minute, what on earth's going on? There's been something going on here for some time, but it's a terrible blow. Dundee and Dundee University has a brilliant, world-renowned life sciences department. Now, these things are expensive to keep going, but they're so fundamental. Life sciences were the envy. We are the envy of the world up there in Dundee. So I wonder if somebody will contact us and tell us the real story that's going on here. I have a feeling there's another story.
Maybe a whistleblower into our friend James.
Maybe a whistleblower. So any whistleblowers out there, come and blow your whistle at Willie.
But no, I think obviously that size of black hole cannot all be down to the NI contribution uplift, right? So you're right. I think
It's not.
No. There's been a bit of mismanagement here. I think somebody's eyes not been on the ball, but we'll wait and see. But it's just a shame, and especially a shame for the people going to lose their jobs.
Now, can I just bring it here, and I want to keep your blood pressure under control here, Willie. Are you all right? The beta blockers. Patrick Harvey, not friend of the show.
Yeah.
Not friend of the show. Came out with a really, what we're going to call it, Willie? A bill which he said would get us to net zero, but sense has been seen in the Scottish Government, and Gillian Martin had said that the bill as it was drafted to get householders to net zero would make people a lot poorer. So are you a happy man today?
I'm definitely a happy man. I was interviewed on radio yesterday.
There are different radio stations apart from the Go Radio Business Show.
Yes. Maybe not as good, but there are other stations. This is common sense prevailing.
Right.
And what we need is a scientific approach. Right. So let's be quite clear. I would every day strive to get to net zero.
Yes.
Right. Right. But what we can't do is we can't put all the burden on individuals. So for me, people are fed up with politicians turning up at COP24, COP26, COP whatever, and saying that they're going to do this and going to do that. And then they come back and they make legislation and put all the cost onto individuals. Right. This has to stop. People are fighting back now. Now, I can tell you, people now have waned the whole rush to go and buy electric cars. People are saying, no, wait a minute, it's too expensive. And the whole thing around the heating and buildings bill that you're talking about is that we need a scientific approach to that, right? Yes. And we are working behind the scenes to try and get way beyond anything that Patrick Harvey would try and get to. But here is my point, and I made this on the radio yesterday. At the moment, we're trying to put the burden on individuals. So if individuals at the moment are told that they have to fit a heat pump or a solar panel or a battery or whatever they need, this cost is like, a little case saying the government will give you £7,500. The total cost of that could be £30,000.
Wow.
So you've got 23.5 grand of debt.
So just to be clear on this, the bill as it was drafted by Patrick Harvey said if you bought a house and it had a gas boiler, within a very short period of time, you had to get rid of your gas boiler and put in a heat pump or...
Yeah, mostly a heat pump.
Mostly a heat pump.
Yes.
Which I don't want you starting heat pumps, but you're saying that's not the way to go.
It is not. It's part of the mix like everything else.
Right.
There is a place for a heat pump.
Okay.
I would not recommend heat pumps for tenements, for high-rise, for all of that stuff. It just doesn't work, and it can't work. So, but
And
for,
you sell them.
for yes, I wish that everybody had to buy one tomorrow, and they work, right? But they don't. But so as we're quite clear, the answer lies with the government.
Right.
Right, we have said it many, many times. Scotland is the right size to be the first country in the world with 100% clean energy.
Right.
So let's be quite clear here in what I'm saying is if we work with all our big utility providers and we work with Ed Miliband and the £28 that's got to be spent getting us to green, if we can get wind and solar and tidal and whatever mix that we've got was no fossil fuels, then I believe that Scotland is the right size where we can supply to your house and my house 100% clean energy. Now what that means is, if we can afford that, we can use as much energy as we like and we're not harming the planet.
Right.
Right? But what we should be working on is how we get the fabric in the house right, so how we can help bring your bill down. Two different things.
Which you're proving just across the road.
Absolutely, but two different things. Let's make sure that climate change in relation to energy using houses is not a question because we've got 100% clean energy. And again, our friend Jim McDonald, Jim says that we could actually be the new Saudi Arabia where we could generate enough clean energy, we could export 75%.
Would we let women drive cars though?
Yes, 100%. Yes,
Just checking.
100%.
Just
right?
checking.
But so for the people watching this or listening to this, we'll be quite clear. This is actually a good thing where the SNP government have put it on pause
Said
and they're
stop.
going to deal it with scientifically.
Right.
Right, and that's it. So now, last week, you'd have had to have a heat pump or whatever to get an A rating for your electricity certification for your house, ECP. And now you don't, as long as that you can, there's various things that you can do. Right.
Okay.
So I'm saying that putting this in a pause, this is put about £30,000 on the cost of a retrofit, but more importantly, probably £30,000 onto the cost of a new build.
Yes.
Right. And people can't afford that. But let me make this quite clear. We cannot afford not to try and go green.
Correct.
Right.
That's not right we've ever said.
Right. And let's make it scientific. And I think if we do it this way, there's a chance of meeting the targets. There's no chance of meeting these targets laid down by 2030 or whatever if we put the whole burden on individuals.
So let me ask you, has MD from Gillian Martin's office been in touch with you who know what you're talking about?
Well, let me say to you that in the last meeting I had with the Deputy First Minister in relation to building houses, she did ask me, would I come back for a meeting with herself and the First Minister to talk about the heating and buildings?
Brilliant. Brilliant. So listen, we call it out. So there's a bit of good news from the Scottish Government, I would say. And carrying on with our good news, friend of the show, Laura Davis, and who's been on our Scale Up programme, the Hunter Foundation, her and her husband Craig have sold their business Tag Digital to a huge American company. You remember Laura was on talking about AI. So great news for them. And another business that was on our Scale Up programme at the same time as Laura, Sobin, which is run by a guy called Scott Smythe, he's just sold his business to Accenture. And so it's brilliant to see these companies. I'm not claiming anything there, but I'm just saying it was nice that we're on the Scale Up programme. Anybody out there who wants to get on the website, and it might do you good. But Scott sold his business to Accenture because they were looking for his expertise, but 250 people now, Willie, all over the world about data centres. And both of those businesses were at the forefront of putting AI into their business. And I've spoke to both of them this week, and they've both said understanding and just being that bit ahead of the curve has got them noticed in the global marketplace. So really good news. And these founders are going to continue with the business. They're going to prosper, hopefully, and grow. So good news for both of them.
Brilliant. And another Glasgow-based BLK
Yeah.
just landed a chunky £50 million investment from
£50 million.
Dutch-based Nimbus Capital. And again, that's providing, again, the importance of getting out and finding the investors wherever they are. The fintech business is distributing the commodities trading market and will the funds and build out their platform and also logistical capabilities. This is amazing. Another 50 million into a Glasgow-based business.
So again, it's using AI, Willie, to disrupt a marketplace. They're just ahead of the curve here, and they're talking about an IPO. I mean, a 50 million investment is not to be laughed at.
Yeah, and I had a meeting this week with some of the directors for Octopus, the energy provider, and they are using AI. They're using everything. They've got fantastic software systems, and that conversation with them about trying to work together to build a house and a system for energy, where both of them, I mean, they're trying to get to a situation where your electricity bill is zero. Zero. And you'll not believe it, we're doing tests at the moment for a new build for a house up in Dundee, a large 3-bedroom house. And at the moment, working with the guys at Invertay, with Eddie and Mike, the data that we're getting at the moment is that we believe that the energy bill for the house is £50 a month.
Wow.
Right, so we're not far away from getting it down to something really, really, that is really good news for the consumer. And so we're not talking about 1,200 quid and 1,500 quid a year.
Wow. So talking about disruptors, my friend, you're not so sure, Elon Musk, I've actually written down here, is Elon unraveling? I think you predicted this. I don't think I lost a bet on it, but I think he's unraveling to the point where he's got Donald Trump sitting outside the White House saying he's bought a Tesla. I want to see the check that he's paid for this Tesla. Willie. I don't think he's paid for it. But what's been happening in the American economy, Willie? And people might say, oh, well, Tom and Willie, what's that got to do with my business? I'm here in Scotland. Well, whatever happens across the pond, we usually catch a cold over here. So I was reading about this morning. So since Trump's been in, right? If we look at Tesla gained, I mean, the numbers here are I can't get my head around about it. But since Trump came in, Tesla's market cap went up $733 billion. But now all that is gone. Gone. It was valued at something like 80 times earnings, which was never sustainable, all these things. But if you remember, there was a great shot at the inauguration of all the tech giants, Jeff Bezos, the founders of Google, Zuckerberg, obviously Elon. But those shares are called the Magnificent Seven, Willie.
Yeah. And
this is Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, which is Facebook. And they have lost, wait to hear this number, since Donald Trump's been in, 2.7 trillion. Now, I don't know how many hundreds of billions a trillion is.
We don't even know how many zeros.
No, we don't know how many, but that's a lot of money. That's even more money than you've got, Willie, has been lost. And the personal stakes of Jeff Bezos and Sergey Brin at Google and Elon, they've lost 171 billion in that time. So this love-in between the business and the president, do you think that's going to cause frissions?
Well, I've said that for weeks and weeks and weeks that they were going to fall out, and I think I don't know if you've seen it, but it was reported in the New York Times this week. Huge fallout. The 5 or 6 staffers, not one person, not one whistleblower, are saying, watch this space, it's coming to an end. But one thing I seen this week, Tom, and I watched it, and I had to watch it again because I didn't believe it, right? There's a senator, a Democratic senator in the States, his second name's Murphy, I can't remember what his first name is.
Right.
And this was unbelievable. He actually done a presentation in the Senate this week,
Right.
where he outlined the 50 days of corruption from this president, right, in the Senate.
Is this available on YouTube?
It's available on YouTube.
Just like
go
Go
and
Radio
watch
Business
it.
Show?
It lasts for 22 minutes and watch it. It is scary. It is scary. And he points out about your friend Elon, that Elon had 7 investigations going on for various departments in the government. A lot of it Labour. He has fired every single person who was leading up every one of those inquiries, right? Could you believe that today that you can go onto one of their websites, official, and you can get an appointment to meet the president for $5 million?
Wow.
Right?
Cash for questions comes to
That
mind
the
here.
president and one of the other guys that he's picked to lead up one of our departments have a huge merchandising offer, right? So Donald is still selling hats and he gets the money.
He gets
right?
the money.
He gets the money. But some of the things that show, here's one for you while we're talking about your friend.
Just to be clear, viewers, I've met him once.
Elon's businesses value have dropped by 800 million in the last few months.
Yeah.
Okay. The US government gave him an order last week for $400 million to supply the US government armored plated cars. They don't even have a prototype yet.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Right. So he said contracts, I think, for SpaceX, whatever, the money. The good news is it won't make up for the money that has dropped in the value of Tesla. But if you watch this presentation for a senator, right, you would seriously, Tom, you would say, what he's saying is, why is nobody kicking these doors in, running in here with sets of handcuffs?
Right.
Right? He says there's been loads of things said about different governments and whatever there was, Democratic and Republican, but this is blatant corruption where they are not hiding it. Right? They're not hiding it. They don't care what you think. Here's what they're doing. They're getting away with it and they're going to continue to do it. What about the announcement about the Bitcoin companies 2 weeks ago? So he announces it was Bitcoin Day in the White House. Right? Bitcoin Day in the White House. And he promoted 3 of the smaller companies in the world. And only after lobbying 2 days later did he mention Bitcoin and Ethereum, the 2 largest. Right? It then transpires that the small company that he was promoting, him and his family own all the shares. Right?
Wow.
Scary. Absolutely scary.
So just to take a slightly different point of view here, I'm still going to call Elon a genius to start Tesla from nothing, to do SpaceX, to get reusable rockets, to get Starlink, to get Neuralink. I mean, he was so busy before, but I think he's going to rue the day he ever really got involved here. But I don't think he should put off us in the UK and in Scotland, business helping government look at efficiency. I hope it doesn't, because it definitely needs. And Keir Starmer was on the radio this morning on my way in here saying he's going to make the civil service more efficient. It really does need business brains. I know I've put you forward, but it needs this to help the government so that us, the taxpayer, don't just get increasing tax all the time. We can say our tax money is being spent efficiently.
Let me just finish on this thing about Elon Musk.
I'll give you the last word.
Right.
It's you on the station.
Right. Okay. So here is 2 things that Elon Musk has done that is more than scary. Right. So if you ever wanted to see the greatest abuse of power ever, then here's 2 things that he's done in the last year.
Right.
If you go back a wee bit when he had his spat with Hamza Yusuf, when he was then our First Minister.
Right.
Right.
I forgot about that.
Yes. He went public and threatened Hamza Yusuf by saying, pal, remember, I've got all of your tweets. Right. So if that's not an abuse of being the owner of Twitter, I don't know what is. Right. But sadly this week, there's no way back for him, in my eyes, when he said, I could kill Ukraine's first line of defense tomorrow by switching off their connection to Starlink.
Yeah.
If that is not the greatest abuse of power I've ever heard, right, you should get arrested for that.
I agree with that.
100%.
Agree with that.
Right? And he done that. So that's not my opinion. Let's deal with his actions.
Yep.
And that was scary. That's frightening. Frightening.
Abuse of power.
So,
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom,
Yes.
our main guest this week, I'm really looking forward to this,
Yep.
is Samantha Smith, known as Sam, who's the co-founder of the Superscalers.
Well, that's a brilliant name to start with, Sam. Superscalers. You've got my attention. You've got my attention.
Yeah.
So tell us a wee bit about your background, Sam, and then we can get on to the meat of this, which is Superscalers. You've got me excited this morning.
Excellent, excellent. I'm glad I have. So my early career was spent at KPMG in accounting, and then I left there because I didn't like big businesses, and I didn't quite realize I was an entrepreneur, but should have done. But I joined a wealth manager to basically set up an investment bank. They wanted to set up a corporate finance division. I was 24. I had no idea what I was doing, but I thought it sounded fun, and I started about building a corporate finance division for them. So it was an office, a desk, a phone. It was just sort of getting on with it. And over the 10 years, I built a division for them, which started to become quite successful. But because we were just raising money for entrepreneurial companies, we were IPOing them, we were advising them, we were doing lots of work around their growth journey. 8 years later, we almost didn't look up. I went, oh, we've actually got quite a lot of clients now. We're doing all right. We're doing sort of 3 million revenue. We've got quite a nice little division we've created for this bigger company. So then we wanted to keep growing and we wanted to buy it out. So 2007 came, we orchestrated a buyout. I led that buyout and became CEO of what is now called FinCap. So FinCap existed for 10 years before as a division that I was building, and FinCap became FinCap in 2007. And our real USP was, how can we treat SMEs differently to every other investment bank? Because over 10 years, I just knew, doing the transaction is actually easy. Corporate finance is quite easy. What isn't easy is getting into, so maybe I shouldn't say that for the whole investment bank.
Easy for some, Sam.
I found that bit quite easy.
Easy for some.
What was really interesting to me and hard was to get into the mindset of that entrepreneur about, this is a massively important part of their journey. So whether it's a fundraise, an IPO, raising some debt for the first time, whatever it might be, that's a big deal, because entrepreneurs are people. And I became fascinated about what makes them tick. And we became a really trusted advisor to those SMEs. And I really could not understand why every other investment bank gave those companies the worst team, like the most junior team, the least experienced team, because they were small. But these are the super scalers of the future. These are our big companies. Every big company started where they are.
Yeah.
So they should have the best people and the best service. So our USP when we bought out was, we're going to do SMEs differently. We are not just going to raise them the money and move on. We're going to look after them. We're going to champion SMEs. That's all we're going to do for the rest of our business career. We might keep advising bigger and bigger companies, but still in that SME range, anything from sort of 10 million market cap up to 1 billion. So that was our stall. We set it out. We said, we just care about these SMEs more than anybody else. Northern Rock collapsed. That made it a little bit hairy 2 weeks later.
Yeah, the
but we
timing
carried
wasn't
on.
great, Sammy.
Model of staff ownership. Yes. So it was a bit hairy, and given I only just become a CEO, I really didn't know, what to do at that point. But it turned out to be a great opportunity for us, because we carried on growing. We recruited people who got this SME thing, and we accelerated our business plan by 5 years. And 5 or 6 years later, we became the number one advisor on the AIM market.
Wow.
Top advisor for tech companies and life science businesses. And everyone looked around and went, oh, well, they're clearly doing something. So continued that journey, took it to beyond 50 million of revenue. We bought Cavendish Corporate Finance, which was an M&A house, in 2018, and IPO'd ourselves, which was very exciting. One of the first few females to do that. And created an investment bank for growth companies that was really built on a really different culture. Firstly, like really caring about clients, but that stemmed from the fact that we had such a different inclusive culture. And my passion became, over those 24 years, how do I change the culture within financial services? Why does it have to be like this? Why does it have to be so aggressive? Why do we cut the bottom 10% because we just feel like it every year? Why do we treat junior staff so badly? Why are people not in the equity structure? So all of those things, I was lucky enough to be able to sort of create my own culture of openness, fairness, valuing people. And as a result, we had 40% women by the end in our investment bank, which was unheard of. We changed the culture. We proved that you could make as much money as everybody else, but you could do it in a much better way. So when I left there in 2.5 years ago now, September 22, I didn't think I'd be a CEO ever again, actually, but I wanted to champion entrepreneurship in the UK because I just seen what it can do for growth, productivity. I'd been putting entrepreneurship in primary schools for about 8 years, seen what that had done to sort of light the spark for people who didn't realize because they weren't academic that they had a massive skill around they could create a business. So I became very interested in that. So my sort of brand Sam was going to be, I'm going to be a culture warrior. I'm going to be like inclusive culture the way forward. That's how businesses super scale. I'm going to be all about championing entrepreneurship in the UK as a force for good. And I want to be really the voice of that underrepresented founder, whether it's from the background you come from. And I went to not a great state school. And, that was for me really a bigger issue than being female coming from a state school and everyone in banking asking me the very first question, what does your dad do and what school did you go to? And me like having a hot sweat panic that, please don't ask me that because I don't fit in. That was worse for me. So what I'm doing now, I'm sitting on 5 boards. I act as entrepreneur in residence for a couple of growth companies that I love, all in different sectors and all different ways of funding. So a private equity backed one, a listed one, a fund, a bootstrap one. Basically different sectors, different ways of funding, so I can really see from the ground how this entrepreneurship thing works in real life within those businesses, as well as having built my own and advised lots. And then last September, my big passion has always been this underrepresented founder and super scaling and getting really big and being ambitious and being about the mindset. And so over 2 years of leaving, just chatting to so many entrepreneurs, these light bulbs were coming on as 2 real things I wanted to change. One is if we want power and influence to change in the UK and actually in the world, we need different people at the top table, different voices, different backgrounds, different colours, different genders, whatever it might be. We just don't need groupthink. We need a different approach. So different people at the table. And actually, I want to champion underrepresented founders and I want to help them super scale. So if I could double the number of women super scaling, what would that do for positions of power? So suddenly you've got people with a significant voice. And that applies to all underrepresented groups. So our passion and our mission is to get more underrepresented founders super scaling, and that's getting to that magic 50 million number. The why is because we just want decisions to be made where different people in the room, different voices are heard. We need to be in the room. And our vision is to create the largest global community of underrepresented founders in the world with over £1 million revenue that want to super scale. So that is quite a big mission.
Yeah.
I'm now CEO of it because I sort of have gone back into my old roots, but I'm not going to do it how I did before. But it's so exciting. And every day, we've got more and more women joining the community, more people from different backgrounds, and you can see the change it's making every day to them just thinking, oh, I didn't realize how the finance world worked. I didn't realize how ambition worked. I didn't realize this doubling principle of how companies grow. And it's almost how I felt when I went to university for the first time and suddenly met all these private school educated kids. And I thought, they got some memo I never got. And now I've got the memo. I feel like we're sort of passing on the memo of how do you navigate the system to all sorts of founders who the system was just never built for. So that's what we're all about now, and it's super exciting.
So, Sam, that is quite a story. My goodness, and good luck to you. I mean, I think if I could maybe take you back a little bit.
Yes.
We coach in our scale up programs that learn by doing, but I think you're the epitome of learn by doing because you said you didn't know what you were doing, but where do you think that your intuitive sense that you could do well in an industry came from? Was there anything, our viewers and listeners are always looking for little nuggets. People sometimes lack a bit of confidence, but you just got on with it. So any ideas where that came from?
So I do try and think about this, and there was one moment which at the time I don't remember being a big deal, but I think it started to get my mind thinking about how you can improve things, how entrepreneurs see things. And I about 17, I think I went to my grandparents had a couple of bakeries in Cardiff in Wales. So they were entrepreneurs, very small entrepreneurs themselves. So they sent me off to cover it was like a sandwich round at a local office block. And they sent me off for 2 weeks to cover someone who went on holiday. So I turned up. It's like, yeah, this is great. I'm going to earn a bit of money, live with my grandparents. It's going to be fun. And every day I loved it. It was probably the first time I'd ever really earned proper money other than a little Saturday job. And it was 2 weeks, and I could own something. I could own this sandwich round. So every day I'd make the sandwiches, get the cakes ready, like choose things, go off, set it all up, make the serve everybody, make the teas and coffees, and then tot up the money at the end of the day and get picked up in this little white van and go off again. And every day for 2 weeks, I did the same thing. But every day, and I didn't realize I was doing this, every day I was just making little improvements. And I was noticing, oh, okay, those sandwiches are going down quite well. Actually, they're having that. Actually, maybe I'll dress a bit nicer. Actually, maybe I'll put some decorations up. And everything that I was doing were just little tweaks, but making it more of a nice experience in this really boring office block where people are coming out their offices and just coming to a little, little thing that was not anything, just a little shop, and making it a nice experience. And so at the end of the 2 weeks, I had a great time. It was brilliant. Went home, didn't think anything of it. Until my aunt, who was running the bakeries at the time, called me up and said, do you realise that our revenue had doubled over that period of time?
Right.
That you were there. And it went back to normal when I left. And I didn't think about that till quite a few years later. I thought, was that little taste of something, just being able to have ownership and to use your brain? And I'm dyslexic and probably got ADHD, off the charts, but my brain thinks very visually, and to give me a chance to just feel like I could be creative, I could own it. I didn't like school at all. I think no one particularly believed in me. I was fairly ordinary. I wasn't particularly great at anything. So, this was my chance to go, oh, I'm a bit creative and I can do this. And my people skills were my thing. It's like, how am I selling a story basically of just a boring sandwich? How am I making it fun? So when I started ThinkApp, when I think about starting the division and advising people and getting into, right, can we raise you some money, and can we advise you, and can we float your company on the stock market, and can we do this, all these different services, that I was almost doing the same thing again. It was like iterating, okay, really noticing, what do you need, what works for you, how can I make that experience better, how can I get into the hearts and minds of my clients and know deeply what they want. And that was the only difference. It was the only difference. So I think, when I talk to these school kids, I'm not an entrepreneur who has Elon Musk type ideas. I'm not that inventor type. I'm just look, I see things, I notice people, and I just want to do it better. And I think that's my style. And maybe as an entrepreneur, that style is slightly easier because you can make most things better, can't you?
Sam, can I ask you, what was the experience like when you floated that IPO experience?
When I IPO'd my business. So it was interesting because I have probably IPO'd 100, 200 businesses. Can't even count how many businesses I'd IPO'd by that point. So I thought I pretty much knew most things about IPOing. I obviously did know a lot, but when I came to IPO mine, and I'd always tell my clients, if you get 1 in 3 investors saying yes, that's a really good hit rate. So, that we've done really well, but 2 will say no. I didn't think about that as a process about how you might accept that as an entrepreneur. When it happened to me, the first person who said no, obviously I know these clients because we've been broking to them for years. I did not know what to do. It's the first time ever in my life I've had to go to a pub on my own and order a gin and tonic. It was I was heartbroken. It was like someone had massively insulted my child, and I didn't know what to do about it. And that made me think again, oh my God, there's nothing apart from living that experience.
It's a great learning experience for you, though.
It's that was my learnt experience. So yes, I'd IPO'd lots. Yes, I thought I was in the mindset of people doing it and going through it, and I thought I'd done a great job at that. But until I'd done it myself, it was like a whole another world.
Wow.
And we did it in a very difficult time, December 18, where everyone was pulling their IPOs. The government was going wrong. In one meeting I pitched, 2 MPs resigned in that meeting. It's like, oh my God. So I think it was us and AJ Bell that floated that month, and
What was the value?
could not fail because we IPO businesses for a living. So I just had to get it done. It was the worst fundraise I've ever done.
What was the value? What was the value of the company at the float?
The value of the company there was, I think it was 28 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And Sam, you're now being the champion. I know you're friends with Anna Stewart up here, who's also a great champion for underrepresented groups trying to be entrepreneurs, etc. If you had your magic wand, and you've got great experience of this now, what's the couple of things that you would change so that underrepresented females, or as you put it, colour, or whatever it is there a couple of silver bullets out there, or is it just an amalgam of lots of things we need to do?
So it is a lot of things, but I'd say what the most important thing I found so far, and this applies to just anyone that the system wasn't built for, so anyone who's out there building on their own, no community, no network, is this principle of why companies go through exponential growth. And I do talks on this now, and I did one yesterday at Elite Business because it's so important. And the same reaction was in the room for all those founders who are at the early stage, which is what I thought from knowing all these companies and advising them and seeing financials over many years, you two are probably the same, is that it's very much ingrained in your brain. It's in your DNA that growth isn't linear. Growth starts, everyone starts at zero, takes you a long time probably to get to 1 to 3 million. But at that point, once you know what scales, it's exponential. You just double and double and double. And if you start looking at every company, they start following the same pattern: 25 million, 50 million, 100, 200. You don't go from 100 million to 102 million. That's not how growth works. Now, I thought this is obvious to everybody because it was my world. Even though I came from outside that world, I got into that world very quickly. But recently, having come totally out of it and talking to entrepreneurs who just don't have that community, they did not get that memo. So I have got some people who think they're at 2 million and their next stage is 2.2. I've got people at 10 million who think maybe I'll get to 12. So what they don't understand this principle of exponential growth, so then they don't plan for it. So what I'm trying to get across to as many people as I can is the minimum, whatever stage you're at, that you need to get to is the next stage is to double. You've got to minimum double.
Right.
You've got to plan for 2 doubling journeys ahead. So you at least can think, God, what do I need there, and make decisions now. And then in your mind is to your long shot, you've got to think 10 doubling times away. So that's your,
Wow.
got no idea how to get there. So I think minimum 1, 2 times to plan, 10 times to think. And that message
I've actually never thought of it that way, Sam.
I don't think anybody has.
has been transformational.
I don't think anybody has.
You're probably sitting there going, it's really obvious, but it's not. So I think one thing is, there might be lots of things like that, but get that ambition piece, understanding exponential growth, understanding why you do that, and understanding that everybody's just like you. So just because you built a £1 billion business doesn't mean you're any better. Just means you knew that you keep doubling, you keep going. I think it gets easier as you get bigger. So, why do all these people stop at 1 million? Because they've done the hardest bit and loads of doubling journeys. I want to persuade them to carry on and stay in the UK and build their business. So that's a really key part. Then the second part is, it took us a year to find out how many women entrepreneurs had built a business ever to 50 million in the UK. And that number is 80.
Is
So
that all,
that
Sam,
took
is
us
it?
a year to find the data. No one knew the data. So that was driving me mad. So we luckily found the data. And now we know who those women are. Most of those women have never met until a couple of weeks ago, where we did an event with Trini Woodall, who is a superscaler as well, and my co-founder, Rosalind Blair, who built AMS, Alexander Mann. We got them all together. And that was just amazing, because what you saw is the same thing again. Women who built 100, 200 million revenue businesses, amazingly profitable, brilliant businesses, had real market share. They didn't understand why they're in the room. They weren't turning up to events because they didn't feel like they should be there.
For them.
Still at that point. So I think there's something about getting the memo about growth, and there's something about showcasing them who they are, showcasing more sort of different entrepreneurs from all sorts of backgrounds, pulling them together as a community, which is what the Superscalers is about, and just helping them navigate a system that's not built for them, is made to be very complex, but actually really isn't complex, and distilling it down to the level that I almost say, like, if my 10-year-old daughter can understand what I'm saying, that's the level I want everyone to talk to. So if I got a funder in the room, I don't want them to be talking pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B.
Yeah.
No one knows what you're talking about. It's like, just tell us, if we're at this sort of revenue and this sort of profits, how might we scale? What sort of funding could we use? Everyone can understand that. But you realise when you come out the city that that is not how the system works. And when you understand it, it's great. But when you don't, you're so on the outside. So those are my two big things. And then I've got a third, probably big one, which is the funding gap, which I'm finding more and more people I meet that build slower. And this comes from any founder, whether it's a Black founder, female founder, someone from a state school that just doesn't have a network of anybody. They grow in a different way. And when I've talked to business schools about this, they say what I'm talking about is very similar to how family businesses scale. So they build different MBA courses for family businesses. And the way underrepresented founders build businesses is quite different as well. It's a bit slower. They take a bit less risk. They iterate a lot. They bootstrap a lot. So what you're seeing is actually the reason why they're doing it is different to a lot of other people and why they build, which is why some funding isn't suitable. So they start to either build a legacy, they want to build something for the long term, they really care about their team, so they want to build in a way they never have to get rid of people if they don't have to. They're trying to solve a problem, they're trying to disrupt. For women, it might be to build financial security. It's not to build a massive business that makes a load of money and I'm going to sell it for a fortune. So you can see why then you scale in a different way, which leads to a massive funding gap, because those businesses are too small for PE. They're not fast enough, quick enough growth for VC, and they probably would pass out if you gave them that check and said, quit, grow it 10x in 5 years. I would have hated that. But they're great sustainable businesses that should be backed. Every single one of my superscalers in my community, and we're at 150 now, is an amazing business. It's a proper business making money. They bootstrap. They don't expect a load of investment and spend it and waste it. They're building proper businesses. So how do we fill that funding gap? And I feel like there's a project for me somewhere, which I'd love your help with. But, how do we fill that funding gap? Because we could create huge growth and longevity in these businesses. But we have to recognise it's not just throwing more money at VCs and then hoping all these underrepresented founders turn up. They're not going to, because they don't want that money in that way. They want to build differently. And that is much better for the economy, because they're businesses that are here to stay. They pay tax, they employ people, they create growth all over the country in whatever region. And they encourage loads of other people to build a business.
Sam,
So that's quite a lot of things, isn't it?
Sam, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but that was a fascinating story. And thank you so much for coming on the programme, and we're wishing you all the best.
So, Sam,
Thank you very much.
I know you're doing an event with Anna Stewart up in Scotland, I believe. So we would love to get you involved with our Scale Up programs. So we will be in touch. Fascinating listening to you today. And until we meet, we will see you later.
Bye-bye.
Yes, I'd love to chat to you more.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Sam, you're not going to believe it.
No.
On the board you can't afford this week,
Yes.
I've got Natalie Anderson.
Natalie?
Excited to be
And guess what she comes for?
I don't know.
Ayrshire.
You're joking.
No.
She's the co-founder of Ralston Contracts Limited.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Great to have you on the show, Natalie.
Ayrshire. Now, somebody was telling me that, you know, these MAGA hats that's on there, Make America Great Again, it's actually Make Ayrshire Great Again. Somebody clever told me that. I can't remember who it was.
I believe plagiarism is
Must be
best.
Paul somebody. Anyway, tell us about your business, Natalie, how you get going and what Ralston Contracts does.
So we are a hard landscaping business. So we provide services like patios, decking, fencing, driveways, those kind of things.
Right.
We do offer soft landscaping as well, but we subcontract that out. But we would like to bring that in-house eventually.
I see.
So we've been going for a year and a half now. So we're still quite a young company, still trying
So
to.
it's you and your husband,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Who's here today, but just off
Behind
camera.
the scenes.
And what gave you the idea to get started?
Well, I think John and I have always kind of spoke about going ourselves. It's both our backgrounds. I was procurement for 12 years and John is a ground worker, worked his way up to management. And we always kind of spoke about starting our own company because we had heard quite a lot of stories, as you probably heard yourself, of people getting ripped off or poor quality and bad workmanship. So we felt that the time was right and our lives last October 23 to eventually start ourselves.
Right. Okay, great. And how's it going?
Going well. We're trying to establish our core service at the moment, which is obviously the landscaping, and we have been consistently booked 4 to 6 months in advance. So
In advance? Wow.
yes, we've been
That
doing.
sounds good, Willie.
We've been doing quite well.
Right,
Quite
okay.
right.
Right, so what's your question for the board you can't understand this morning?
So I'm currently doing a strategic management course at UWS.
Right.
And John and I, we've had quite a lot of ideas to grow the business, but I'm just wondering what is the best way to kind of filter down, break out the noise and decide what is the best avenue to pursue to put into your strategy.
Wow. So I think that's a brilliant question, Willie.
Yep.
And any small business out there has got the same dilemma you and John have got. There isn't one answer fits all as ever. I don't really understand the business, but what we coach, and you might want to come in our scale up program, just give it a wee plug, which is done in Ayrshire at Blair Estate. And we might want to talk to you there about the landscaping as well. So you need to leave me your card after this. And we've got to do business as well here, Willie. So I would say with all of these things, you sit and you say, right, where are the avenues we could grow? And you do a wee kind of SWOT analysis. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then you do your research. But do you know something? We really believe in learning by doing. So you cover your downside and you say, right, I'm not sure which one to do, so let's try that. But make sure it doesn't cost you a lot if it fails. But if it fails, failing's probably not the right word. It's more, I would call it market research. So we tried that, we learned something, but it didn't quite work. So the next one we're going to look at, we're going to understand a bit better. So we really encourage people to learn by doing, but cover your downside in that, because when you do jump into these things, sometimes they don't work out. So it mustn't be fatal, especially in the early years. Especially, have you got an answer, Will?
Yeah, before I answer, I'd like to ask you, obviously you mentioned a few things, landscaping, driveways, whatever. Of the things, of the services that you offer, Natalie, what do you think is your core? Is it more expertise in landscaping or in paving or what?
So I'd probably just say the hard landscaping. So it kind of comes under all the one bracket is the hard landscaping. That's our speciality.
So my advice to anybody at the stage that you're at is that to sit down and science, as Tom says, look at the opportunities, right? And then look at the opportunities where you could pursue them where there's not a lot of capital required, right? So let's say, for instance, if you were going to be soft landscaping, and you needed to buy all this capital equipment, you know, lawnmowers and tractors and all of that kind of stuff, then that could be a barrier to growth. Whereas if you were doing if you're doing hard landscaping, if you're putting down paving or doing whatever it may be, then that might not be so capital intense. So for me, it's weighing up the opportunities against the costs. But I think that my advice to companies of the size that you're at the moment is always try and just grow incrementally. Right, so if you can grow by 10 or 20% a year, that's phenomenal. So in 5 years, you'll double the size or whatever it may be. I think that probably the best advice I could give you that is, as Tom says, while you're doing your studies at UWS, is to learn more about the strategy for growth, right? And that strategy growth, there's loads of parts to that to be successful. One again, do I need capital? Do I not? I'm very fortunate in the business I'm in a people business. So when I get a new contract, I go and take on people. I don't go and have to spend £6 million buying equipment.
Yeah.
I do and then things don't work out and you're left with £6 million of equipment. So I would just say that look at what the opportunities are. And if you find that all the big opportunities where you can maybe take a quantum in your growth does mean capital, then it's a different, so where do we go and get capital? Where do we go and get investment in the business? So I think that, as I agree with Tom, do that SWOT analysis of, especially on your opportunities when you're talking about growth, and see where that fits in. If the business is generating cash, right, because Tom will tell you cash is king. If that is generating cash, then you can use that cash to grow the business. I think, to be fair, I think what I'm calling soft landscaping, which we do, is very seasonal.
Yeah.
Right. So I always believe that the landscaping company that's going to be very, very successful is when they find something for the people to do for the months where you're not busy cutting grass or cutting trees or doing whatever you're doing. And I don't know if he's noticed, but the next natural thing to look at if you're doing that, you know, believe it, is pest control. Right, because
Pest control.
Yeah, because most of the pests live in the bits and pieces that you're cutting.
I've got a few pests that live near me, Willie. So
We're not talking about the two-legged ones.
Okay.
Right, okay, we're talking about the four-legged ones or the things that fly. So I would just say to you that, I mean, I don't know, in the time that you've been, about 18 months, what do you think, you know, what's been the biggest success for you in any growth that you've had at the moment?
Probably, I think we've tried to get another team member so we can get another team on the road, because that would basically double our business, because it's just John in the one team at the moment. But trying to find that person has proved quite difficult. We've been trying since September, and it's been so hard to find someone. But I think that would make a big leap for us, which would then allow us to invest in other things, because we have thought about going commercial, going into sites, or into property, or maybe looking at a few sustainability things like going green on our tools, our vans, our...
So is it only residential you're doing at the moment?
Yes, it's only residential homes.
Right, so it's big houses, big, well, that'll keep you busy.
yeah.
The Blair estate will keep you busy.
So I think, Natalie, I think the Go Radio Business Show can help you in two ways this morning. So you need to look at that camera and say what type of person you're looking for and how they get in touch with you, if you're looking for that. And then plug your business for your customers. So what sort of customers you're looking for and how they get in touch with you. So on you go.
So we are looking for homeowners who are looking to enjoy their garden again. It might be that it's in a state or it's just not functioning how it should. So we're looking for homeowners who want to make over their garden. We do really thrive in from design to finish. So it is a complete transformation. That is where our strengths lie. So
And what kind of team leader are you looking for to put that other team together?
The team leader, we're looking for somebody who is incredible at attention to detail and quality, because that is how we sell our services and that's how we get the business.
So how do customers or potential new team members get in touch with you?
So you can email info@rowsoncontracts.co.uk, or our website is www.rowsoncontracts.co.uk.
Natalie, brilliant. Well, hopefully you'll let us know next week that someone's been in touch, right? Interested in the job, and that you've now started on Monday on the Blair estate.
Yes.
Come
see you over the weekend.
Brilliant. So brilliant, Natalie. So best of luck to you and John and your business. We need thousands like you who've taken the plunge to start your business, to really go for it. And that's how Scotland flourishes, quite frankly. So the best of luck to you. And MAGA, let's make Ayrshire great again.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Tom, another show in the can.
Another one in the can, Willie.
Yeah.
It's nice to be back in the studio.
Yeah. And remember the message that Tom put out last week. Anybody who's watching it on our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. Remember, it doesn't cost you anything.
Doesn't cost you anything, subscribe.
You're not signing up for anything. So to all our listeners and viewers, thank you again for watching and listening.
Yes, thanks. And if you've got a business, good luck growing it. We need you. Scotland needs you. So good luck.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Go